This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to Digital Perspectives, everybody. I'm Brad Kimes. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove. This is a very, very special episode of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the opportunity to sit down with the former head of XRP markets with Ripple, the one and only Miguel Villas. And I don't mind telling you, it was an amazing conversation with Miguel. And he had, at the end of the interview, some breaking news and a big announcement. And I can't wait for you to hear that as well. But listen, we talk XRP, we talk the Ledger, we talk the OCC. What am I saying? Before we get into this thing, let me tell you guys, a lot of hacks, a lot of people getting hacked, SIM card hacks, all these things. Pure VPN for your computer, for your phone. Help hide and protect your anonymity when you're online, ladies and gentlemen. Crypto is about to be the biggest thing ever. Bigger than the internet, I certainly believe. And I don't mind telling you, when it comes to this, they have a 7-day trial for 99 cents. Try it out. I don't know anybody who doesn't need to protect their identity online and their anonymity. So make sure you check out Pure VPN. Okay, guys, look, let's go ahead and get into this thing. The one and only Miguel Villas interview breaking right here on Digital Perspectives. Enjoy. We'll check back in afterwards.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Digital Perspectives. Look who I've got with me here today. It is Miguel Villas. Miguel, how are you?
I'm doing well, Brad. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, thank you for being here. We're going to have a great time. So, all right, so now Miguel Villas, former head of XRP markets, you know what I mean? But, you know, you've done a lot of great things in your time there at Ripple. So let's have a little conversation about that, if we could.
Sure.
Yeah, tell me about it. No, go ahead.
Look, I joined the company back November of 2016. It was me and one other person on the markets team. When I left, I think there was 10 or 12 folks on the team globally: Singapore, London, New York, San Francisco. You know, when I started, the remit was to grow XRP's ecosystem, grow liquidity. That morphed into strategic partnerships for ODL, XRapid, and it morphed into, you know, kind of managing treasury for the company and, you know, managing the sales process for XRP. So it was a wild ride, Brad. A lot of ups and downs.
I bet, and it's exciting. So I have a list of questions here that we can go over. Let me open these up, and I know a couple of these I better ask, or the audience members will be like, hey, you didn't ask this, you know. So I better start here.
Better ask the question, Brad.
They better ask it, you know what I mean? So one is, do you still hold XRP?
Yeah, of course.
That's wonderful. And you created hashtag Zero Doubt and hashtag XRP the standard for XRP. And those two have just been staples in crypto Twitter, and they have not left. Do you still have zero doubt about XRP?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I know we'll touch base a lot more on XRP, but it's, like I say, it's pole position.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. So now, talking about Ripple, the company, the blockchain infrastructure company, fintech company. And it's interesting because it's grown. Like Brad Garlinghouse has talked about, it was a fintech company. Now he refers to it as a blockchain infrastructure company. I think that's such a great description of what they've grown into at this point. There's been a lot of talk where people think that Ripple could someday grow into a bank or create a bank off of what they do. Any thoughts on that notion for you?
Look, I would say anything is possible, Brad. I don't think it's a likely scenario for Ripple, certainly not in the short to medium term. I think for a few reasons. Number one, the mission has been set. The company is hyper focused on this use case, on bringing these blockchain-based solutions to banks, financial institutions, and then obviously embedding XRP as a settlement asset or a bridge asset in that. That's hard, and it takes a lot of time and energy. So on top of that, then launching banks and doing, and this is, by the way, this is something that has been bandied about Ripple forever. I can remember reading in 2013 or 2014 about this. So what I would say is I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Ripple became more involved in direct liquidity providing for the market, right? So, especially in maybe some challenging corridors when you go to launch, it may be that it could be more efficient given Ripple's resources for Ripple to provide that liquidity.
Yeah. And now I think it was just at the end of last year, Ripple had a valuation of the company done, and it came in at about $10 billion valuation for the company. It's very impressive for what has happened there. And, a couple questions that came up about that. One was understanding that valuation. Do you see that valuation as all of the escrow included to that valuation, or just what Ripple holds?
No, I think, and look, I wasn't part of that round. Brad, incredibly transparent with a lot of things with respect to the company, but M&A and capital raising is one thing that he always held very tight to the vest, and I think intelligently so, or rightfully so. But so I say that because I wasn't privy to the negotiation around the valuation and how the VCs were viewing it. But I cannot imagine that it would have been valued by without taking the full amount of the holdings into consideration. And I think broadly the way I think about Ripple, and I think depending on who you speak to, they'll either view the holdings as the call option, or they'll view the enterprise software business as the call option. But you basically have one or the other, right? You're either investing in the holdings and getting the call option for free on the enterprise, or the other way around.
Absolutely. I love it. All right. So in going back to in 2019, in Q2 of 2019, there was a remarkable quarter there where there was 900 million XRP that were sold. Mm-hmm. How do look, I mean, for a lot of people coming into this space and understanding, digital assets in general, Ripple's a company, the asset is digital assets XRP, and they understand that delineation. But how does somebody coming in and buying this asset understand this XRP thing? Do they see it as a commodity, a currency, and how do you see it?
Yeah. I think it's hard to speak about how people view something because I don't know all the people.
Right.
I have always viewed it mostly because of its limited supply, because you can't just print more of it. I've always viewed it more as a commodity. But that said, I don't think digital currencies fit into any one neat little bucket. And that's clear given some of the regulatory lack of clarity around what these things are. So I don't know. And certainly they have, XRP can have commodity-like qualities, and it can have FX-like qualities. So it's hard to say, Brett.
Yeah. So, and I understand. I mean, a lot of these digital assets out here have many different characteristics or attributes to them, and it is hard to classify them. I mean, you had spoke about your time. I think it was at CME earlier we had spoke, and when you're dealing with like metals and these things, the things that are already out here in the market, exactly where they go, right?
Yeah. No, I think regulators were kind of sitting around pretty happy until about 2008, and then Bitcoin goes up, and it's like, whoa, what is this thing? And because we had these silos where everything was easily bucketed, and that's just not the case for digital assets and digital currencies. And we can call them assets, we can call them digital currencies, we can call them whatever we want. But the one thing that's for certain is that they don't fit any one particular mold.
Yeah. And now, during your time at Ripple, there was a moment there, and I know Chris Larson had even made a reference too. You had talked about speaking about XRP having at some point the same liquidity of a G10 currency. Chris Larson had spoke about the XRP having the same liquidity as like a Swiss franc. Could you speak to that a bit?
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. The goal is to make this a global currency, right? And to make it a substitute settlement asset, so that you want to settle in dollars, great. You want to settle in euro, great. You want to settle in yuan, great. You want to settle in XRP, fantastic. You can do that. So that, in order to make that a reality, and there's a chicken and egg thing here for sure, but whichever one comes first, you're going to need the liquidity.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is funny, right? Yeah, it's yeah, yeah. Well said. Now, let's see. Let's go to this here. So, I want to talk about. So, Naveen Gupta had said one time about, we're either here as Ripple to make a dent in the universe, or we're going to go away. You know, what are your thoughts there? You think Ripple makes a dent in the universe?
I think it already has.
Well said.
I don't know. I mean, name another company that has gotten, regulated real public companies to use a digital currency in any meaningful way. I think that place has so much to be proud of, and the sky's the limit, certainly, and we're just scratching the surface. But no, it has already shown. Number one, like when Bitcoin came out, and then XRP comes out, and there's the whole kind of the class warfare between the two things, right? And it's centralized this and that. There was a lot of doubt as to whether or not this model, one where Brad's spoken about this a lot, where you're not trying to tear down the system, you're trying to work with the system. Whether that model had any value, could work, would anybody bother, to even give it a shot? And Ripple has, through many ups and downs and through, I think, some really challenging times, prevailed and shown that, even though it's not done, there is a path where an enterprise blockchain company affiliated with a digital currency can add real value to existing companies.
Absolutely. Yeah, and now there was an accelerator program back in 2017, I believe, where you guys had allocated $300 million worth of XRP to incentivize markets and I guess market makers. And that was really to get them to try coming off of the traditional direct path and use this new bridge path of settlement. Can you just talk about what that was like for you during that time, and that, what your hurdles were versus to where you left,
Look, the biggest hurdle is always kind of this fear of the unknown when you're dealing with digital currency. Certainly back in 2017, when it was even less clear where regulators sat, how legal this was, would you get in trouble? Again, Ripple's base customer are the regulated entities, right? So that means if a regulated entity does something wrong, they get licenses taken away and they get fined and businesses shut down. So you have to go to a company and say, I'm going to provide this service, or I'm going to provide this product, and it is going to be so much better that it's worth the risk. And that usually involves being creative in thinking like the client and saying, look, this is how this is going to make you more money, because that's why you're going to take the risk. At the end of the day, if a product doesn't hit the bottom line, then the probability that a company adopts it is much, much lower.
Absolutely. Now, recently we've seen Brian Brooks, who's now at the head of the OCC, come out and talk and give clarity, actually, to the federally chartered banks in the United States of America that they can custody digital assets. What does that mean to you for XRP?
Well, I think I'll speak broadly about what it means to the space, and then we can hone in on XRP.
Sure.
I think for the digital currency markets at large, I think it's a watershed moment. And I don't know that I'm sure it's a coincidence because the timing is so close, but just today you had the Goldman Sachs announcement about their new head of digital assets or blockchain or whatever they call the department. And one of the first things they mentioned is creating their own currency or creating their own coin. So I think that for the space, it's an absolute watershed moment because now it allows these financial institutions to hold this. I don't know that you're ever going to walk into Bank of America and buy XRP, but what it will allow for now is particularly the investment banks who provide access to markets for their hedge funds and their asset managers and their family offices and their wealth funds. Now they can start to provide access to this, right, which is, I think, just could be incredibly impactful. With XRP in particular, the way I read it is now that vision of, because by the way, custody means that you can self-custody as well. It means you can hold your own assets, right? It means you can hold it on your own balance sheet, which is helpful. I think some questions there from a regulatory perspective, but it's one step closer to this idea of XRP as a settlement asset inside of a network of banks.
Yeah, and if I understood the what he had put out too as well, it also opened the door for banks to engage in lending to these brick and mortar picks and shovel businesses behind these cryptocurrencies, and that's exciting because getting funding has been a huge hurdle for a lot of these companies, right?
Funding, I mean, getting a bank account,
right?
I think you really got to give the space a ton of credit for its scrappy kind of can-do attitude, because it certainly has had some challenges thrown in its face in the last 12 years.
No doubt. Now, Digital Asset Investor had recently sat down and talked with Greg Kidd, original investor in Ripple, and he had referred to the XRP ledger as a universal ledger, which I think we all in this space, if we've been here a while, we understand that XRP's role is the ledger is to serve as like a universal ledger. How do you see XRP, the ledger, as a role in today's world? What do you see?
It's interesting, Brad. When I joined the company, one of the reasons I joined was the vision was very clear to me, but it was the kind of the simple version of that vision, which is one where XRP, the digital currency, is the bridge, right? And that made a ton of sense. I'm like, oh, great, yeah, we'll build liquidity. These two monetary systems will talk to each other. This thing will connect them. Done. You don't have to hold balances on the ledger, so nobody can see them. The banks don't have to worry about transparency and all that fun stuff. That is, I think, the version of the vision that is furthest along. The universal ledger vision is one where the company was born of, right? So this idea of XRP ledger, trust lines and IOUs, and being able to issue any asset and make it interchangeable with anything. I think that is and it's born of David and Arthur. It's a beautiful vision. I think it's one that's much further out than this one. Partly because the company hasn't focused on that, because this is the lower hanging fruit, and not that it's low hanging fruit, because it isn't. But it's the lower hanging fruit. The other one, I think, is all the way at the top of the tree.
Sure. So when it comes to the ledger, like I see the ledger, and then I see a lot of this looks so analogous to the early days of the internet, right? The protocols from the early days of the internet, the SMTP or whatever, and the HTTP and the FTP protocols, and how they all work together like a federated, one federated unit. Do you see, like, at some point the space developing where there's a couple protocols like the XRP ledger that help this system operate in a virtual federated way?
Yeah, look, I think it's you're kind of describing ILP, right?
Yeah.
And this idea that you can connect all of these different ledgers, and it doesn't matter whether it's digital or not digital, and it all kind of speaks to everything, speaks to everything. And look, you're seeing some of that happen a little bit in the DeFi space. I think, I don't know, Brad. it's a, again, and I hate to be boring, but I have this very like tunnel vision view of a use case that is so big and so powerful and can be so paradigm shifting that when I think about that kind of layer two, not to misuse the moniker, but kind of that second, that 2.0 version of this, my head starts to spin a little bit. And that may be just because I'm not as smart as Stefan. Just that simple.
I'm working on a learning curve myself, I could tell you that, buddy. So in the past, lawmakers have urged Congress to designate cloud-based technology as SIFMUs, or systemically important financial market utilities. Some of the cloud-based services that were cited were like a Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure. You know, I couldn't help but think about Ripplenet, the cloud-based service of Ripplenet, and wonder, you know, could this find itself to be at some day to growing into a role where it's systemically important to the financial market utility?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think that, you know, my first question is, and I don't know if Swift is or if it isn't, you know, a system, but if it got important enough, I don't see why not. But my gut tells me that because we use a lot of those services that you just described, like, you know, it's cloud-based, so it's in one of those clouds. You know, it's a layer removed from that kind of systemic important infrastructure, right? I think the other thing too is it's not something that retail customers use, that people use. So I don't know that it has that breadth, right? And I think, you know, I'd love to find out if Swift was designated that. And if it isn't, I think the path for Ripplenet to be designated as such would be less likely.
Gotcha. And when look, there's a lot of talk, and I'm sure you're well aware of it too, when people talk about Ripple or they talk about XRP and they dump on the market and things, and I talk about it every day on the channel.
No one ever talks bad about it. That's your line. You've never seen any of that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Never, yeah.
Never.
And I mean, on a daily basis, I'm fighting FUD crime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
You know, can you speak to the people who are either maybe just not informed or maybe they're new coming into this space? Because, you know, on the heels of, you know, Brian Brooks's remarks, we're going to see a lot of new people come into this space. So if you could speak to the good stewardship that Ripple has when it comes to XRP.
Sure. Look, it's certainly my time there, and I have no reason to doubt that after my time there, there's a real do no harm mantra, right? You know, the place is long 55 billion XRP. You don't want to hurt that. You don't want to do anything that could hurt that. So, you know, certainly this idea that we dump the market, that we manipulate the market, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where, in what mind, the risk reward for a company to do stuff like that comes out on no, this risk is worth it. I don't get it. I can tell you that, you know, we tried, and the company continues to try to be as thoughtful about how it manages the asset, how it manages its balance sheet. It's as transparent. It's more transparent than anyone out there. You know, Brad takes an incredible amount of pride in this, and he should, because no one's told us to do any of the things that we did. We did it for the good of the market, right? I mean, remember when I joined in November of 16, and this was, the thought was already in the air inside of Ripple of wanting to be more transparent. So we put together the quarterly markets report, and then escrow, right? So that we can remove this FUD, we can remove these doubts about the things that the company was trying to do or was doing, quite frankly. But I think at some level, Brad, you know, you're never going to please everyone. And, you know, the company has gone above and beyond in terms of what it had to do. And unfortunately, I don't think it gets enough credit.
Yeah, I agree. And well said. I certainly know from doing a channel, you will never please everyone. I've learned
No.
that. That is for sure. That is not going to happen. So, okay. So going back to the Moneygram partnership, which was exciting when that happened. And, I had a chance and I was very grateful for the opportunity to go to Swell in Singapore. Was hoping we'd get to meet you there, and you didn't actually attend, which is unfortunate, right? But I got a chance to speak to David Schwartz a bit, and at that time, MoneyGram was really just happened, kind of fresh, and he had spoke about the idea that having MoneyGram was a great opportunity for Ripple because they could show the world what's possible through a remittance service provider with the use of it, and obviously it has proven out. They just had an earnings call, which was amazing, so. Thinking about that, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that's an important real-time example that everyone has been able to watch happen, for the world. Banks, how much is an asset like XRP worth that everyone needs to use and no one needs to hold technically?
It's interesting. It's a question. I have had that conversation with David where it's like, okay, so we're building this bridge asset use case. No one needs to hold it. So how does value accrue? And we are long 55 billion of this.
Yeah, we're going to want it to go well.
And we do want it to go well. I think, look, the bridge asset use case is that, and it proves something, right? It proves, oh wait, you can move money with this. This is good. But it is the first step towards the broader vision of using it as a settlement asset, where MoneyGram, let's say, instead of buying it, transferring it, selling it, would hold it and just send it to whoever it had to settle with, and then those folks would get out of it. Now, you're like, well, that's still on balance, net, no new demand. Sure, but as that network grows and more people need to grow into that network, they do have to source the XRP. And that does drive demand in the long run, right? So I think the bridge asset, the MoneyGram deal, which was incredibly exciting, I was so fortunate to be there when Kahina Van Dyke, who I reported to at the time, kind of brought that home. I think proved that, yes, step one, got it. Now we need to kind of move forward and prove out step two.
And wasn't that a really good opportunity for, not only regulators to see this happen and to watch this work the way it did, study it from every angle, understand the risk if there are any, and more importantly, the remittance service provider really takes on the mitigated risk from the banks or the market participants, whoever they are.
Sure. No, I think it was great, kind of proving out of a few things. I think for us, the fact that we could get somebody like a MoneyGram to wholesale use the technology and use XRP as a bridge asset was just, I think, a watershed moment in the history of crypto. So I think that's one. And then, yes, now regulators have to contend with the fact that safely, happily, efficiently, without anybody losing any money, without any fraud, you have a big company using a digital currency.
Absolutely. One thing we haven't seen yet, which I'm still excited to see, is, seeing MoneyGram and the success that they've had. Let's just say the Mexican peso to U.S. corridor. We haven't seen the flywheel effect happen where we've seen another remittance service provider or two or three come in that same corridor and compete for that space and those transactions, that end customer, that end user, right? And all of them using XRP. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, and if I read, I think I read Ashish's blog post a couple of, maybe about a month back, where they talked about tweaking the model a little bit and going away from this kind of treasury management, larger payment, bulk payment to a per transaction model, right? Where now, instead of holding these large balances at all, you're just constantly churning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not waiting to settle at the end of the day or at the end of the week. I do wonder if that's going to be the impetus, right? That slight change, because certainly the treasury management model was challenging. I think there's some challenges there that may have slowed down that adoption with respect to other payment providers. But that said, Moneygram is not the only customer that's using ODL in that fashion. So, and I don't know how many are using it now, but when I left, they were one of 3. So,
yeah, it just continues to grow. It's wonderful. So look, this is exciting. I mean, the opportunity to sit down and talk with you about all your achievements with the team and everybody there at Ripple and the things that you guys have taken part of, but you have some breaking news, and I want to know what it is. I don't know what's going on. You've got breaking news.
Yeah, I got a little bit of news, Brad. So I have recently joined, very recently, it was 2 days ago, joined Link2, the online private markets platform as COO. And I'm joining Bill Saris, the co-founder and CEO over there, and try to help him scale that. And I am incredibly excited about it. It has something to do with liquidity and building markets, which is my wheelhouse. It is crypto adjacent in that it has a few household crypto names on the platform that people can invest in. But more than anything, it's solving a real problem. And when I first met Bill and he started to tell me about what they're trying to do, it hit me like a ton of bricks that there's this opportunity to provide access to some of the most impressive, exciting companies to folks who don't have accredited investors nonetheless, but at least you don't need $100,000, $250,000 to invest, right? You can invest with 5, 10 grand and get access to some of these companies before they go public. So I cannot tell you, I'm psyched. I'm so pumped. It's great.
It is great. I was like, what? What? I mean, no, it's fantastic, man. It really is exciting. I mean, talk to me a little more about that, because, Link2 is doing something very special by finding this niche. Most people, I don't know if they realize in the crypto space, accredited investor starts at a very extremely high level to be able to participate in that market.
Yeah. The accreditation, you got to have, you either have made 200 grand if you're single over the last 2 years, or 300 if you're married. Good luck with that. And then, you got to have $1 million in assets outside your house, or you have to have $1 million in assets outside your house. That's a high bar. So it's certainly not easy. But there's 45 million people out there who fit that bill, who don't, even if they're accredited, don't have an extra 100 grand lying around to go purchase some shares, right? And there's nowhere for them to do anything smaller. Right? The existing folks just don't provide that service. So I think it's a really good opportunity, and the team is just fantastic.
They're a great bunch over there. They really are. There's no question about it. I had the chance to sit down with Bill Saris, co-founder of Link2, just a week or two ago. I think it might have been 2 weeks ago now. And he told me that you guys are doing something amazing with Link2 and Uphold and the wallet. And I know one of the Mr. B XRP just did a demo about how you're going to be able to purchase these things right off of Uphold. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, they sent me the Mr. B video today. We hadn't announced anything, we haven't said anything, right? But leave it to the internet to go find the nuggets. So the idea here is going to be that we'll at the moment Link2 will use an integration with the Uphold wallet, so that if you have an Uphold account and you have a Link2 account, you can buy directly from your Uphold wallet shares in Uphold and Coinbase and Ripple, Robinhood, and you can use XRP, you can use Bitcoin, you can use dollars, you can use anything that Uphold allows you to have.
Right.
So that's pretty neat. Obviously, you still have to be accredited. I think going forward, there's visions of having the ability to basically buy anything have our clients or our customers buy anything that Uphold has available, and allow Uphold clients to buy anything that Link 2 has available. So that could be super powerful, but that's a V2.
It's pretty remarkable to think that we're really, what I see is a couple things here. One, I see, you guys at Link2 doing something very special to be able to open this door to more people to get access into these private stocks and pre-IPOs. And, the other thing I see is the innovation and the tech that's happening here is changing the landscape. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer and closer to inching to that, crossing that threshold to where it's forever changed, right? I mean, you're talking about a wallet where you've got crypto assets, and I could just go over and purchase stock with those crypto assets. Where are we going?
Yeah, I look, if I told you 12 years ago that this is where we'd be, in 10 years or 12 years or whatever, you'd be like, nah, I don't buy it. But here we are, right? And I think, we may have already crossed that threshold, Brad. We're not going back.
We're not going back. Yeah.
It's too convenient, right? And I think that's one of the goals for us at Link2 is to make it frictionless, right? And I often say we're trying to be the kind of the Robin Hood for private markets, and I want to be a little careful with that because Robin Hood has some hair on it, especially lately. But that seamless, frictionless, from onboarding to accreditation to funding to trading, I think is something that we want to make as elegant and as streamlined as possible, because that is where everything is going. Like, the expectation out there is that, with a few clicks of a button, you can do anything. So that's the driver, right? I mean, that's where we all have to go.
It's pretty remarkable. Well, look, congratulations to you. That is remarkable. I mean, I think there's a huge upside to what's going on there. I mean, now let me ask you, in that light of knowing that you're going to be at a place like that, Link2 is about picks and shovels. Link2 is about brick and mortar behind all of this crypto space, the blockchain space. Are we on the precipice of moving into the .com era of crypto? I mean, it feels so analogous to the .com era of internet.
Yeah, I think you touched on something earlier with respect to funding. And, it's something that's obviously near and dear to our hearts at Link2. In order to get to that, that .com kind of moment, you need funds available. I think the banks now possibly providing capital, even if it's in the form of loans, could get that going, because now the companies can grow more. Because really, outside of Ripple, Coinbase, and a few others, most crypto companies are pretty small from a capitalization, but even a headcount perspective. So I think there's a few things that have to happen. Number one, that working capital freedom has to come through in a way that isn't, you don't have to make everything and the only funding you have is VC funding. There has to be a third way. I think that's helpful. Consolidation, I think, will be helpful. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that. But that's a lot of gobbledygook and a super long-winded way of saying, like, yes, it's coming. And what I would say, it's probably going to come faster than we think, because the internet didn't have the internet. Everything is just faster now, because you can collaborate, because you grab ideas and you get inspiration, and this thing makes it basically where I can work anywhere, anytime, get anything. You just couldn't do that in 1999. So I say it about the crashes and the rallies and the crypto generally. I also say it's like, yeah, maybe the markets have had some bubble-like scenarios that would have taken 10 years to basically come back to previous levels, but information didn't flow as easily and capital didn't flow as easily. So it's a different world, and everything will happen more quickly than we think.
I agree. Well said. Miguel Viez, I'm very happy for you, and I'm very gracious for your time, my friend.
Sure.
So glad that you stopped by, and I hope you'll come see us again.
Oh, I'd love to. Anytime you'll have me, I'll be here.
You got it, man. Don't go anywhere. I'm just going to sign off real quick here. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is
This is Digital Perspectives.
Let me just pause this real quick here. That is the interview with Miguel Villas, and it's pretty remarkable. Very happy for him and what he's doing. This is the company where he's landing that we've actually been talking about some of the latest news where Ripple is actually selling some stock. And I find that amazing. And I mean, I can tell you something. You know, when I think about this since that interview, and I think to myself, now wait a second. Greg Kidd is it linked to? Now Miguel Villas is it linked to? I can tell you something. I don't know about you, but link to is at 55 cents, and this is not financial advice, but this guy is going to be getting some link to stock. I can tell you that. But I'm very happy for Miguel. It was just a great conversation. And again, thank you to him, and thank you to all of you for checking that out. You know, I want to tell you before we go too, by the way, listen guys, girls, get on the Rich List free monthly newsletter. And I'm very excited to say I have been working with Dave Cryptopoulos, the co-host on Friday's show, and I have completed a really solid educational course for anybody who wants to round out your knowledge here in the space, if you've been here a little bit, or anybody who's coming into this space. And believe me, there's a lot of people that are about to come into this space and want to know what is the difference between a Bitcoin and an XRP, and is Bitcoin the same as cryptocurrency? You know, all that stuff. We all get hit with it with family, friends, and coworkers. Make sure you get on that list. And I'm going to tell you what, there's a lot of exclusive content that will only be in this monthly newsletter. Again, I want to thank Miguel Villas for being here. Congratulations to him, new COO of Link2, and I will catch all of you on the next one. Take care.